Film study from last year, what did it show you about cornerback, nickelback play and what you needed to improve on this year?
As you look at the film and you go back and watch it, you will, we had to get depth, which we did. We addressed the depth issue with older guys who could play, and also understanding when you bring in guys from the portal, try to get them in early, so they can go through spring. Two guys that we had last year, one came in at the beginning of fall camp, the other one came in during the summer. So from a relationship standpoint, time standpoint, when you from a timing standpoint, as they in the spring, they get to know them, they get to know you, you get to know them, and y'all continue to build. And time, we know that brings trust, because when you're consistent over time, the player trusts you, you trust the player, and now y'all thrive together.
What have you seen so far in camp from the cornerbacks in particular that you've liked? And can you talk about the depth a little?
From the corners in particular, we have this saying that we in a secondary total, we have standards, not starters, right? So you talk in terms of that. If we set the standard, we set the bar high, and consistently day in and day out, you have to reach that standard, right? Because it's a real competitive group. When you start talking about Jalen Braxton and Keon Stewart and Cody Robertson and Jaheim Singletary, the young guy, with Selman Bridges, I think it's a competitive group, and each day they get better every day, no matter who it is. And to be honest, with the whole secondary, this is the closest group I've ever been amongst players, on and off the field, holding each other accountable. And when they hold each other accountable, it's like, hey, you're right. I did that. You're right. And let's fix it. Right. So I think this group has a chance to really, really be special because of the depth and the talent.
We know Larry Worth and Anthony Switzer are both really versatile players, and we've seen them work with kind of different positions. Just what do you like about them, and how right now are you planning on using them?
When you think about Larry, you think about a guy that's 6'3", 6'4", that had the ability to run a 48 quarter, right? In most states, if you run a 400 meter in 48 seconds, you're either going to be first or second in that event, right? So when you think of him from a speed and length standpoint, he has position flexibility, whether he could play outside linebacker / hog position, whether he can play safety, right? So we'll find multiple ways to use him, similar to the last place he was at. We'll find different ways to use him. And same with Anthony Switzer, multiple ways to use him, whether it's linebacker, he didn't play boundary safety, has experience, and he's an extremely intelligent player. I think at one day he's going to be a really, really, really good coach. And just talking to him, that guy is extremely intelligent, and he has the ability to run and toughness of a linebacker, but ability of a defensive back.
We've seen Akari Johnson with the second team a little bit. Just what strides did he make over the summer, and what do you like about him?
Also, when you think about Akari, he's a young guy who played quarterback in high school, transitioned some to defensive back. When you get guys that play quarterback in high school, you know you're bringing in a high IQ guy, right? Naturally, they'll understand how to read route concepts, right? They could hold a lot of information and be a quarterback of the defense. He has a really, really bright future. You talking 4.0 student. You don't have to worry about him being on any list. Extremely intelligent player.
You talk about the hog position. You got Danico Slaughter there, who's, I think he ran a 22.9. I think it was fastest miles per hour on the team. Then you mentioned Worth, who's the best leaper on the team. Like, what qualities do you look for when you're identifying somebody to play that position?
When you're trying to find the hog position, right? It's an extension of the corner, right? You start thinking, I need to find someone that has cornerback ability, AKA Slaughter, played a little bit at the last place he was at, right? But also could have the physicality of a safety, right? So it's the fine line of those type of players that has position flexibility. That position at hog, you should be able to play anywhere in a secondary without a problem because you have to set the passing strength. You have to know to go away from the passing strength. And when you think of Larry Worth, he's a guy that little different in a body sense, right? He's more the guy that if he plays that position, when he plays that position, it's more 12 personnel kind of things. But he also have the ability to play guard receivers. Next guy, young guy that's having a really impressive camp. You think about Tevis Metcalf, right? And also TJ Metcalf has that same ability to play that position. I always joke and say those Metcalf guys are different, right? They built different from a mentality standpoint. I think they were raised the right way. With the last name they have, they definitely don't let it down.
I was going to talk to you about Tevis a little bit. I noticed in the spring hitting people. I mean, moving well. Like, I don't know if it was a surprise, but like he's really competing there, it seems like. And you've also got Jabri Shaw. I believe those are the four guys you guys had at nickel today, at least.
Yes. The question.
Yeah, just on Tevis, just elaborate on Tevis, like what is allowing him to compete there. You talked about some of the qualities that you look for.
So when you think of, he's a perfect example of a guy that has the ability, has the strength, has the twitch, has the power, also has the football IQ to play hog and play corner, right? And that's the kind of guys you got to look for. Again, if you even looking at his weight numbers, when you're talking about bench press and power clean, you would have never, if they don't have freshman next to his name, you would never guess that Tevis is a true freshman because he is so intelligent. He is so mature. He's a guy that I think he's going to help us this year. Help us win.
Hey, Braxton was obviously a guy that played a lot as a freshman, really impressive. What kind of progress has he made from last year to this year?
With Jalen Braxton, he's a guy that even now we kind of go back, whether it's the first game against Western Carolina, and we talk about the maturation process as a player, right? First game he played some snaps and he was like, hey, I was just out there. Now I think the speed of college football has slowed down and understanding route concepts. A lot of times when you're a true freshman, you're playing off of all ability because the game is still going fast. Now him going into year two, the game is slowing down. He's reading concept. He's asking next level questions. We talk about in a defensive back room having a PhD in football, right? When you think about elite players, they're just not playing off ability. They're playing off of ability and football IQ. When you get a PhD in football, right, that means you'll be in the NFL for 6+ years. Just off of I understand when two go in, what one gonna do? When two go out, what one gonna do? When it comes down to reading concepts, when it's talking about man coverage, come down to ability, the stems of receiver, and you see it on film. And I know we're heading in the right direction when we talk about a PhD in football. When I see something a third time and I come back and I'm about to walk up to them and talk to them, I'll be about to walk up and they say exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, all right, we're heading in the right direction. We definitely climbing and we trending upwards.
And Singletary, same thoughts on him?
Yes. Yes. From the with Singletary, he was one of the guys that came in a spring. Right. So when he came in, in the summer, and that's the relationship standpoint. We were trying summertime, like, hey, let's build this relationship. Now he understands expectations. He's another guy. These first 5 days, you look at Singletary and you're like, hey, he is who we thought he were coming out of high school. And he's been having a really, really good camp as well.
I was going to ask you about Singletary, but also Keon Stewart being a second-year guy that transferred in. Just what strides has he made? Is he maybe getting closer to being a guy that could be a true starter for you?
Yeah. So no. Again, we don't have starters. We have standards, right? So when you look at Keon Stewart, he's another guy. He came in first day of camp or second day of camp or something like that last year, and it was a bunch of stuff we were getting together. And now I think it's football. We could focus. He went through spring. He went through the summer. He is in shape, right? He does understand me. I understand him, right? And when we go in, it's the same, similar to when we talk about Jalen Braxton. Yeah, Keon played a lot of football, but he hadn't played a lot of football with Coach Wilson, Coach Woodson, Coach Williams, Coach Pittman with that staff, right? So as he coming in here, he played at another university, have some snaps, but as you continue, once he got here, like, hey, this is the technique we're gonna do it. Off of this coverage, this the technique we play. Hey, this is the eye progression that we play off of it, right? So he had no choice but to climb, but he is heading in the right direction, and day in and day out, he reached the standard that we have.
And we've seen a little bit of y'all's one-on-ones with the receivers. I'm curious if maybe any of those guys on the other side of the ball has maybe impressed you based on what you've seen going up against your guys.
First guy to come to my mind, I think of Andrew Armstrong. He's having a really, really impressive camp, had an impressive fall. I think he has a chance to be a really good player in this league. Next guy to come is Tyrone Broden. He's another guy that flashed, right? And as a defensive coach, when things happen, you look and say, hey, how we could fix it, obviously. But also, as an Arkansas Razorback coach, you also say, hey, sometimes they're going to make plays. They're on scholarship, too. And if we just, like, demolish them every single day, that's not something – at times, that's not good for the Hogs because we are a team. You know what I mean? But the defensive coach in me say, hey, I don't want them to catch the ball. This is how to fix the technique. This is why that happened.
Having some more depth in your room this year change anything you can do schematically? Like, does it open anything for you guys and as a secondary to do anything differently?
Yes, it does. And I laugh with the players. Hey, we have good problems, right? And it's not a problem really when you have that kind of depth. When you say problem, it's like, all right, we got to figure out how to get good players on the field at the same time. When you're trying to find all five, or whether you go a dime package and you're trying to find all six, right? I would say we're going to try to find ways to get our best players on the field.
And a hoodie and sweatpants in 95-degree weather? Is that, are you just trying to sweat through it? What's going on there?
It's kind of cold in the building. It's a little cold. Hey, that's Coach Pittman joke towards me every day. He's like, hey, man, I know you hot, Coach, but I need to lose a little weight too.
We were watching the running back tight end pass pro against linebackers, and maybe the Hogs were in there, but you probably were on another part of the field. Switzer was winning so many of his reps, and I just wonder when it came to his position, like how tough is it to find what his ideal position is going to be when he's beating running backs the way he was as I think a linebacker today.
You Swiss Army knife. You know what I mean? You find different ways to use them. Our job as coaches, and I don't want to speak for the coordinator because that's more of a coordinator question. You know what I mean? Similar to the last question, it's a coordinator question, and I think, and we collab as a staff on how we're going to use the guy. But I think we'll figure out ways. Coach T. Will and the defensive staff, we'll figure out ways to make sure he's in the best position where he can make plays and the defense can make plays.
I didn't phrase that very good. Danico, what qualities has he shown that's allowed him? I think he's getting first team reps, if you're going to name starters here, but what's Danico done to impress you?
When you think about Danico, he's one of the guys you're talking, a guy that can play man coverage, a guy that has the ability to blitz, a guy that can drop in the flat, a guy, if you need him to, that can play in the post, a guy that could play curl flat, whatever it is. He's a guy that has the ability, corner ability, right, but also has the toughness as a nickel hog, right? And when you look at him, and I don't want to say when you say toughness, because if any position, if you're not tough, you can't play, right? If you can't tackle, you can't play in the secondary. You know what I mean? But he has the verbal confirmation. From a communication standpoint, he does a good job at it.
Gail Mitchell getting the bulk of his reps now. What's happening with him?
He's playing safety. It's now the guy again played a lot of football at the last university he was at. You think of Miguel, you think of toughness, big guy, you thinking 6'2", maybe 210, but also has the ability to cover. We have a lot of depth. I think we have a lot of depth, and he could play. Shoot, if we go down, he has position flexibility to go to different spots when we go down.
You guys flip your corners, or can guys play one side or the other? How's that going to work?
Each week is different. Each week is different. It could be field and boundary. It could be left and right. Each week is different. But But you have to have the ability to know both sides. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm a boundary corner." So, all right, what if somebody's tempoing? You know what I mean? So now you got stuck in you got stuck to the field, and now you have to know what the field corner is doing. You know what I mean? So each week is different depending on who we playing. It may be matchups. We have a big guy. We may want to put a big DB. It's a whole bunch of things that go within that.
Selman comes in as a true freshman this spring. I mean, he looks like an NFL cornerback. What does he do well, and maybe what are some ways that he can still kind of get to those standards that you guys need to make sure he sees the field?
We think a Selman long guy that could run, similar to a team in the NFC West, how they like they call in Seattle, right? He looked like one of those guys. As you look at Selman, when you have length and you can run, sometimes you could play low hip, meaning a little bit under receiver, and you're still covering a receiver up, right? It makes it hard on quarterbacks because they can't see the receiver, right? And Selman, I always tell him, man, I'm on you a lot, but just remember Jalen Braxton was in this position last year, and he continued to climb and trust the process, right? And when you trust the process, you're going to reach the standards.
You talked about obviously the standards and you're not starters and stuff, but how much rotation would you like to have in the secondary? I mean, you don't see a lot of rotation there, I guess, less than linebackers, less than defensive line, of course.
That's a good question. Oh, sure. If you reach the standard, and you have the ability to show that you're not a liability out there, you'll be a guy that see the field. Right? Because in this day and age, when you think of teams playing 80 snaps a game, if you can get a guy to play 45, 55, and he's playing to the best of his ability, it's better at 45, 55 snaps. But when he gets to that 70, you see his technique is declining, his eyes are getting bad, right? Those are the moments when now I could say, all right, we could go 45 and 35, right? That equals 80. Yeah. So 45 and 35. And now we got the best ability because from a gap standpoint, it is close, right? From a standard standpoint, it is close. So when everybody's reaching that standard, if I could have you out there with 100% of energy, right? Or 95, 90, right? And then when you get to 65 energy, we have somebody else that has the same ability that's reaching the standard. He get out there in 100%. It makes the team better, similar to defensive line play. Guys, appreciate you. All right, thank you.